Hebrews, Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Israel Wake Up. This is our Women Advanced Bible Study, 23rd of July, 2026. Okay, we'll be reading our 3 chapters out of the book of Genesis, chapters 32, 33, and 34. We're going to read each chapter like we normally do, and we're going to read it and break them down, okay? You can go to our YouTube channel, Israel Wake Up, and check out our videos. We have over 1,000 or so videos that you can look at, examine, get to meet out. These videos will lead you to the truth of the Holy Scriptures. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It'd be greatly appreciated, okay? And we have our Cash App at the bottom of the screen for those who want to support this channel and help it move along. That too would be greatly appreciated, okay? And for those that don't know, this is a non-Messianic channel. We deal with the Tanak and the Torah, Tanak being the Old Testament, so-called book of remembrance from Genesis to Malachi. Okay, we don't subscribe to the New Testament or to the God in the New Testament. Okay, this channel was created to aid and assist our Hebrews who are waking up to their true identity in these last days, and also understanding who their Savior and their Redeemer truly is. Shalom and welcome to the channel. Welcome to our Women's Advanced Bible Study. We're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence, a prayer. We are going to read the Psalms. We have our Women's Health Moment with Michelle, current events. We have some need to know information. We will open it up for questions and comments, dialogue, or testimonies. And then our topic for discussion is Asherah has been revealed. And they're going to find out where the 10 tribes actually went to. Okay. In our scripture reading, like I mentioned earlier, is out of Genesis, chapters 32, 33, and 34. Then we'll pick a scripture, like we normally do at the end of the class. We'll break that scripture down. Then we'll close out. Okay. This moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts. Okay. And all that he's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. So Lord, we thank you for your great mercy, great power and wisdom, and we're tired waiting for your powerful deliverance of your people Israel. Oh Lord, you have given us insight into the scriptures of our forefathers, and you, oh Lord, have directed us to who you are and your role in the goings on of heaven and earth. Okay. Tarry not, oh Lord, for the latter days are here, and we are waiting and watching for you. Peace be unto you. Okay. With that being said, we'll read a song right quick.
Shalom, Brother Leonard. Shalom, everyone. I'll be reading Psalms 19. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showed his handiwork. Day unto day uttered speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them have he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgment of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they that go are they than gold, yea, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is thy servant warned, and in keeping of them there is great reward. Who can understand his errors? Cleanse thou me from secret faults. Keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then shall I be upright, and I shall be innocent from the great transgression. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. That was Psalms 19, 1 through 14. Shalom.
Okay. Any feedback on that?
Um, just that David is and just acknowledging the Lord of works, and that he's asking for forgiveness and protection, and that's basically what I got out of it. Shalom.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna go to our women's health moment. With Michelle.
Yes, sir. Shalom, everyone. Please note that the information shared is intended for general and educational purposes only. Tonight, we will discuss healing in the Torah. The ancient world healthcare plan wasn't written by physicians or philosophers, but declared by the Lord of hosts himself in the middle of a desert right here at Myra, fresh off the miracle of bitter water turned sweet. The Lord establishes what might be history's first comprehensive wellness program. Exodus chapter 15, verses 23 through 25. Verse 23 says, "And when they came to Myra, they could not drink of the waters of Myra, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Myra. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink?" Verse 25. And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. But this wasn't about diet plans or exercise routines. This is about something far more profound: the connection between spiritual obedience and physical well being. The children of Israel had just witnessed Egypt devastated by plagues. They'd seen water turn to blood, frogs covering the land, livestock dying, boils breaking out, lice throughout the land, hail destroying crops, locusts devouring what remained, and a plague of darkness. These weren't just random disasters, they were divine judgments that left an entire empire crippled and broken. Now, in Exodus chapter 15, verse 26, the Lord of hosts says, "If thou wilt hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee." The Lord of hosts essentially is saying, listen up. You've seen what happened to Egypt when they resisted my will. But here's the deal for you: walk in obedience, and you won't experience those kinds of devastating consequences. I'm not just your deliverer, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. This scripture comes right after a crisis where the people complained bitterly about their circumstances. The Lord of hosts could have responded with judgment or disappointment. Instead, he responds with one of the most encouraging health promises in all of scripture, and affirms his ability to restore both physical and spiritual health. This statement is foundational for understanding the Lord of hosts' nature and compassionate caring, emphasizing that he desires wholeness for his people. As the children of Israel, we often overlook the spiritual connection to our health. The principle set forth in Exodus chapter 15, verse 26, echoes through time to us today, as we are called to cultivate a lifestyle of obedience and faith that not only leads to personal health and benefits, but also strengthens our relationship with the Lord of hosts. I will be reading from the book of Exodus, chapter 23, verses 20 through 22, an angel of the Lord. Exodus 23, verse 20. "Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way, and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him." Verse 22. "But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice, and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies, and an adversary unto thine adversaries." Tonight's discussion was on healing in the Torah, and I read from the book of Exodus, chapter 23, verses 20 through 22, an angel of the Lord. Shalom, everyone.
Okay, yeah. So that was some good information. And we have, as Israelites, we've gotten away from uh, understanding that our God, our the Lord of hosts that's over us, not only do he deliver us, but he heals us, and we didn't forgot that, but he told us that in Deuteronomy 28 that we would pick up the Gentiles' ways and start operating and thinking like they do, and so that's where we at. We quick to whatever they say do. If we get into a bind or get an element, we're more quick to go a route rather than to seek out the Lord of hosts out and see the things he's done in the past. Okay. So with that being said, we're gonna go to our current events, right? And then we have some need to know information. First we'll deal with this current events. Okay. Got a lot going on.
The war in West Asia. Last night, the United States carried out multiple airstrikes in Iran. This was the 12th consecutive night of bombing. The U.S. Central Command has released footage of the airstrikes. President Donald Trump says the U.S. is winning the war. He made the claim while attending the funeral of an American soldier who was killed by Iranian attacks.
So we're likewise winning in the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we're ensuring that they will never, ever be able to do to us what they've done to so many.
Now, the United States has deployed overwhelming air power against Iran. Despite that, Iran keeps fighting. This morning, the IRGC, or the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, retaliated. They fired a wave of ballistic missiles and drones and struck multiple U.S. military sites in the region. As per reports, Iran hit at least 4 American camps in Kuwait, along with U.S. forces stationed in Jordan. Iran claims it has destroyed a Patriot air defense battery and an MQ-9 drone depot in Kuwait. But the main story is from Jordan, where Iran claims to have struck a THAAD battery, along with a Patriot system and a CRAM radar. This is what Iran is claiming. And even if every claim may not be accurate, the bigger picture is impossible to ignore. Iran has found a way to crack the world's most expensive air defense shield. Let's break it down for you. THAAD stands for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense. This is an anti-ballistic missile system. One entire unit costs up to $3 billion. Now let's look at the Patriot. An air defense system meant to intercept drones, jets, and missiles. Each unit costs $4 million. Then we have the CRAM radar. CRAM stands for Counter Rocket Artillery and Mortar. It shoots down ground-launched short-range weapons. This radar costs $15 million. The THAAD, the Patriot, and the CRAM work in tandem. Together, they're the world's costliest air defense system. And Iran may have found a way to blow them up, using just cheap Shahed drones and missiles, destroying sophisticated weapons of the United States. It's not just about eliminating equipment. It is about challenging the image of American invincibility. And the list of losses is only growing for Donald Trump. The United States has lost more than 40 aircraft. Dozens of radars and air defense systems are now offline. Even vital command centers have been destroyed. And these are just military assets. The human cost is also climbing. As per reports, at least 18 US troops have been killed since the war began. More than 550 are wounded. They're undergoing medical treatment. Clearly, Trump's war is taking a toll on American troops and assets. That does not mean the United States is losing the war. America does have the advantage. It has a bigger air force. It has satellites for intelligence and the ability to carry out long-range precision strikes. But overwhelming power doesn't mean absolute control. Iran has shown that it can absorb the impact. It can retaliate on its own terms. An uncomfortable reality that Washington has to face. Because as the fighting drags on, Iran keeps proving that it has the missiles, it has the drones, but most importantly, it has the willingness to fight. So what is Washington doing about it? Setting new records for military spending. The United States has passed the 2027 defense budget. It's a whopping $1.5 trillion, the largest defense bill in American history. The House of Representatives voted 216 to 212 in favor. Last year, the defense budget was $900 billion. Now it has been capped at $1.5 trillion. That is a spike of nearly 66%. Any guesses who's paying? ordinary American taxpayers. This war has exposed the US war machinery in more ways than one. American dominance is being challenged by cheap Iranian drones. US military assets seem exhausted, overstretched. They are unable to defend against the swarms of aerial attacks. The world's so-called strongest military has just discovered that even billion-dollar shields can be cracked. First Post reports from the world's second largest continent.
Okay. Any feedback on that? Anybody got a thing on that? Okay, we'll go to our next one. I've been talking about this a lot, but so we finally here. Check it out.
Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, might be getting what he wants in merging the Israeli Defense Forces with the United States military. Want to know why? Well, it's because of the fact that the House of Representatives has voted to pass the National Defense Authorization Act with Section 219 intact. Now, of course, that's the provision that allows for the merging of certain parts of the Israeli military with the US military. Clearly, Americans are not in favor of it. It is not something that is even being covered deeply by legacy media outlets, likely because they know that it would be very unpopular with the American people. But I don't want people to give up hope, because while this has passed in the House, the National Defense Authorization Act needs to pass in the Senate for it to become law. And there is some good news because of the good work that you all have been doing in pressuring your elected Congress members and pressuring senators. The Senate did strip their version of Section 219. It has a different, provisional title, but they stripped their version of it from the Senate National Defense Authorization Act legislation. So obviously you can't pass a different version in the lower chamber. So they're going to have to go back and forth until they finally agree on a final version of the National Defense Authorization Act. But I don't want you to think that it's over. Netanyahu's getting what he wants. The Israeli military is now baked into the US military. That is not true yet. So there is still a fight to be had, and it's really up to the Senate now, which is a little bit devastating because I don't really trust any member of Congress at this point. But the fact that we have seen some success in stripping the provision from the Senate version does give me a little bit of hope. Now, with all of that in mind, we need to name names. Now, unfortunately, the vast majority of Republicans voted in favor of the NDAA with Section 219 intact. 7 Republicans, though, did defect, and they deserve credit. Now let's go over to the Democratic side, where the vast majority voted no. However, 6 Democrats voted in favor of the National Defense Authorization Act with the inclusion of that provision, which allows for the IDF to partly merge with our military. And I want to name their names. Congressman Don Davis, Jared Golden, Adam Gray, Vicente Gonzalez, Marie Glusenkamp Perez, and of course,
Jeffries.
Henry Cuellar. Henry Cuellar, the congressman who is incredibly conservative socially, but aside from that, he was the candidate that Nancy Pelosi, when she was House Speaker, pushed real hard to get elected in a Democratic primary where he had a progressive challenger. Fast forward to today, and you have Henry Cuellar voting in favor of a Pentagon funding bill, which, by the way, is budgeted to the tune of $1.1 trillion. $1.1 trillion. He votes in favor of that and agrees to the treasonous provision of merging a foreign country's military with our military. So when people ask me why it is that I see both parties as two sides of the exact same coin, this is what I'm talking about. And I know people like Destiny are going to have like a panic attack about it because he sees his legitimacy as a mouthpiece for a failing, corrupt Democratic Party. But I would like accountability from the people who signed up to represent us. And the fact that you have 6 Democrats who voted in favor of $1.1 trillion to a Pentagon that has failed every single one of their audits and includes a provision that I find absolutely loathsome and disgusting, which merges a foreign country's military with our own. Destiny and people like him really do not have the upper hand or a moral leg to stand on here. Okay, their arguments are not righteous. Their arguments are just partisan brained. And we didn't sign up to be public servants for members of Congress. They signed up to be our public servants, and they're doing a pretty poor job on it, especially the Democrats who purport to be such strong fighters against, big bad Trump. What have they done? What have they done in their big fight against Donald Trump? Nothing. I mean, literally last night for the first time, AOC posted something about Section 219 on X and talked about the importance of voting no on the National Defense Authorization Act. The reason why I'm so hard on AOC is, well, because she has been just disappointing in some areas for sure. But aside from that, she knows what kind of power she has. I mean, the second she opens her mouth, everyone's paying attention, both her haters and the people who love her, or the people who are indifferent. People pay attention to what she has to say. It would have been far more effective, and it would be something that I would personally appreciate deeply, if she had pushed a campaign, much like Ro Khanna, to strip the National Defense Authorization Act of Section 219, but she didn't do that. So I do have high standards for her because she told us to have high standards for her. And unfortunately, she hasn't delivered to the extent that I think she could deliver with the type of power she has in this attention economy. So we'll update you guys on what happens in the Senate, but right now the House is a massive disappointment, and Don Davis, Jared Golden, Adam Gray, Vicente Gonzalez, Marie Glusenkamp Perez, and Henry Cuellar are disgusting, and they should suffer political consequences for what they did.
Okay. Any comments on that? Anybody got anything on that? What you think?
Shalom, brother, and shalom, everyone. I did hear of that, like a press conference they had about that, and the Democrats who sided, and then the Republicans. So it's like 214 to 208. But I have a question on that. So, like she says, two sides of the same coin. Why is he letting this outcast military join with our military? Shalom.
Can you say it again?
Why is Trump for the this other military joining our military? Shalom.
Oh, because they got an agenda. This place they bringing this place down and they bringing Israel up. I keep talking about the Greater Israel Project. It's obvious what they're doing, and everybody just it's bedazzling to me. It's like they're doing it right in front of everybody's face. I mean, for you to sit there and for you to think that you can even put a bill in asking for that is crazy. But it's going through. You know, like the lady said, all it's they try to play like they one against the other one, but they all working, they all synchronized together.
Shalom. And we hadn't heard anything from Netanyahu, but now since the money's coming up, now you're hearing again from him. Shalom.
Right, exactly. And then what I'm getting ready to play, this is crazy part. They trying to show you, they trying to make it look like they did this with Obama. Try to make like the American president was pushing back against Israel, pushing back against Netanyahu, but the whole time it's just a show. So we see the same thing going on right now with Trump. He's supposedly, him and Netanyahu supposedly at odds, right? But check this out. This is some need to know information. Okay. And this is a wake-up call for us also.
podcast. I'm Ali Abunameh. Can the United States government use economic sanctions and the threat of heavy fines and imprisonment to stop people in the United States from seeking accountability for Israeli and American officials implicated in the ongoing genocide in Gaza? That's the question two US-based organizations, Democracy for the Arab World Now, or DAWN, and the Taxpayer Alliance Against Genocide, TAG, are asking a court to decide. They just filed a lawsuit in federal court in New York challenging President Donald Trump's sanctions against the International Criminal Court. The sanctions have already been imposed on ICC prosecutors and judges. Three leading Palestinian human rights organizations, Al-Haq, Al-Mizan, and the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, and the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine, Francesca Albanese. Albanese's sanctions have already faced a separate legal challenge brought by her husband and their US citizen daughter. In May, a federal judge temporarily blocked the sanctions, finding they were likely an unconstitutional punishment for her speech and advocacy, and the US Treasury Department briefly removed her from its blacklist. But the Trump administration appealed, and the higher court allowed the sanctions to be reinstated while the case proceeds, reasoning that Albanese...
But they're against it. They at odds with Israel. But look at this.
As a foreign national living outside the United States may not be protected by the First Amendment for speech made abroad. That was only an interim ruling, but for now, Albanese remains sanctioned as the legal challenge continues. Now, the new lawsuit brought by DAWN and Taxpayers Alliance Against Genocide argues that the administration is violating freedom of speech and association by threatening Americans with fines and criminal prosecutions for providing vaguely defined services.
That's what's coming. Anybody talking about Israel, against Israel, can start going to jail.
To sanction people or organizations. That could include sharing evidence, filing material with the ICC, or simply working together on human rights advocacy. The case comes amid an open US campaign against the court. Just 2 days before the lawsuit was filed, Secretary of State Marco Rubio published a Wall Street Journal opinion piece titled, "Why We're Dismantling the International Criminal Court." In it, he specifically attacked DAWN's advocacy. More than 100 organizations and experts have now warned that the attack on the ICC threatens accountability everywhere. Joining me to discuss the lawsuit are Omar Shaker, Executive Director of DAWN, the human rights organization founded by murdered Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and Tanak Raouf. Tanak is a Palestinian writer and activist based in Seattle. He is a co-founder of TAG and has lost 49 family members in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Omar and Tanak, welcome to the Electronic Intifada podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Omar, let's begin at the basics. These sanctions are presented as measures against foreign officials and organizations, but your lawsuit says they also reach directly into the United States by making it an offense to provide a service to or receive one from any sanctioned person or entity. In plain language, what has the Trump administration prohibited? Who is it targeting? And how does that interfere with the human rights work of DAWN and other organizations?
Thanks, Ali. I mean, I think the first thing to say is there is no plain language around what constitutes a service. And actually, the US government has set out guidelines that suggest that it applies to conferring any sort of benefit on a beneficiary, right? And we've seen, of course, over the decades in US courts, the way material support has been used in a very, very broad way. And in this case, it's being applied to independent speech and advocacy. So the challenge here is you have precedent where the government has tried to say that, for example, giving advice to the International Criminal Court prosecutor or liaising with witnesses or victims for grave crimes with the prosecutor, or in other cases, submitting amicus briefs. All of these could amount to providing a service since the prosecutor for the International Criminal Court is sanctioned. And let me emphasize again, Ali, what the penalties are for Americans under the sanctions. 20 years in prison, up to $1 million in fines, right, for violating these sanctions.
But they're against Israel.
So in the case of Dawn, you know, the kinds of activities that are effective for us, right, are some of our bread and butter work. We made a submission in January 2025 that showed that Biden, Blinken, and Austin were complicit in the very crimes for which the ICC indicted, issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant. And that continued even after the issuance of those warrants. That kind of call itself, that was issued a month before the sanctions came in place. Were we to make a similar submission now for this administration, and Todd will say more about their work in that regard, it could fall under, could be a service and could make Dawn or the citizens, American citizens who work for Dawn, punished under the sanctions. This is human rights, which we can get into, but even for Americans is quite severe.
It's extraordinary that this has passed with so little comment in the United States. Tanak, let me ask you to bring this into your personal context and then also talk about TAG, Taxpayers Alliance Against Genocide, more broadly. You've lost dozens of family members in this genocide, so this is obviously very personal to you. And the lawsuit says that TAG spent months preparing material for the ICC about the alleged roles of Trump administration officials and senior members of Congress in aiding and facilitating Israeli atrocity crimes, but that TAG has withheld that submission because of the sanctions. What was TAG trying to place before the ICC, and what is the effect of these sanctions on your work?
I mean, we've been working very hard to gather evidence of how exactly the Trump administration has been complicit in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Examples include the continued use of 2,000-pound bombs that have decimated communities and funding of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Even after evidence was shown knowing hundreds of people have been killed at those sites, even after whistleblowers have come out to describe the horrific things that the people guarding those sites and managing those sites were saying, thinking, and doing against the Palestinians countries. So winning a case like this would mean that multiple different people from different nationalities can try and hold the U.S. accountable for the crimes that they commit in other nations where the Rome Statute applies. And for me personally, it means that I can finally try to get justice for the 49 family members that the United States killed.
And Omar, in the lawsuit, you argue that if the courts don't restrict the Trump administration or any future administration's ability to misuse these economic emergency powers, then this could go beyond Palestine, as Tanak was suggesting. So it's obviously bad enough that they're restricting the speech and free association of Americans when it comes to Palestine. But what were some of the other examples that you put before the court as to what could happen if the administration were allowed to just use these so-called economic emergency powers unchecked to restrict the freedom of speech and association of Americans?
Absolutely. I mean, it creates the ability to take any disfavored viewpoint, and not get too much into the law, and basically say that, you know, if you're on one side of this, you know, and take any issue you want, the environment, you know, take, even if you were, let's say you had a president that was very...
So we can see right here what direction they're going in. So they're going to start, like I said, imprisoning people. Anybody that's got anything against Israel and pretty much against Trump, they're getting ready to start putting them in jail. Okay? So anybody got any comments on that? What you think? Okay, there's no comments. Keep going. Okay, let me get this. Here we go.
This is the perfect pair for your iPhone.
Got to do with the weather.
Expect as Bertha continues to spin. In today's video, I'll show you how tropical moisture is going to surge into parts of the United States, increasing the flooding threat for millions, plus the training storms and where they will impact as rounds of rain will continue to pile up over the coming days. And if you stay long enough, I've got to look at the latest rainfall totals that will show you who can see double-digit totals before this pattern finally leaves. Well, we've got an increasing threat of flash flooding in the parts of the United States. Welcome in, everybody. Great to have you in. If you're new to the channel, my name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist in Charlotte, North Carolina with a year of TV experience. Appreciate you trusting me to give you your forecast today. Let's go ahead and dive right on into this and give you the latest on this growing threat. Now, we're going to start by taking a look at water vapor loop here on our satellite imagery, and you're starting to see the beginning of the problem. Here in parts of the southeastern United States. We've got a couple different pieces here on your screen. Down to the south, that's Tropical Storm Bertha, or at least what's left of it as it continues to get battled by shear. But something I want you to notice is Bertha is connected here to a bit of moisture, these blue colors indicating higher moisture values over parts of the southeastern United States, from South Carolina over through Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. Meanwhile, from the north, a very slow moving, and I really do mean slow, this thing is crawling, but a frontal system is starting to come out of the north, bringing plenty of dry and cooler conditions up into New England, the northern mid-Atlantic, including D.C., over through parts of the Ohio Valley. But that frontal system is starting to run into a big surge of tropical moisture here, as you can see on your water vapor loop. And because of that, very heavy downpours, showers, and storms are beginning to develop and will continue to train over many of the same areas. Let's go ahead and add on.
So if you pay attention to what is being said right here, and to the news of the weather, it's a lot of severe flooding going on. Actually unnatural. Okay. Anybody heard anything about that?
Shalom, brother, and shalom, everyone. Yes, sir. Out of Texas, they were saying that that was just phenomenal, how that water flooded everything in different parts of Texas this past week. Shalom.
Well, yeah, it's not just Texas. There's other areas in the South, and like he's saying right here, it's a lot more coming. Okay. So with that being said, I'm gonna go to my topic for discussion. I don't know if anybody familiar with Asherah in the book of Joshua, I think it is. Go check it out. So they say Asherah is America, but that's a lie. Let's check it out.
There is a book that used to sit inside the Bible, right, printed, bound, read from pulpits, quoted by kings. And in one short chapter of that book, somebody wrote down the name of the place where the 10 lost tribes of Israel went. Not a theory, not a guess, a name, one word, a Hebrew word so strange that most translators never really knew what to do with it. And then, a little over 200 years ago, that entire book quietly disappeared from almost every Bible printed in America. Tonight, I am going to tell you that word, but not yet, because here is what is coming in the next few minutes. I am going to show you the hidden Hebrew phrase buried underneath that name and what it literally means. I'm going to show you why the book that contains it was pushed out of the Bible and who made that decision and when. And near the end, I'm going to ask you a question about your own family's memory that you may not be able to answer. Stay with me. It gets stranger than you think.
Wait, you don't write anything down after conversation?
Let's start with the disappearance itself, because a lot of people have heard the phrase, the 10 lost tribes, and almost nobody has been told what actually happened. Around the year 722 BC, there was a city called Samaria in the hill country of what is now the northern West Bank. It was the capital of a kingdom, not Judah in the south, with Jerusalem and the temple, but the other one, the northern kingdom, 10 tribes with their own kings, their own shrines, their own army. And it sat directly in the path of the most efficient war machine the ancient Near East had ever produced, Assyria. The Assyrians did not simply conquer, they engineered. Their signature policy was mass deportation, and it was surgical. You take a defeated population, you break it into pieces, you march those pieces hundreds of miles across the empire, and you settle them among strangers who do not speak their language. Then you move another conquered people into the land you just emptied. Do that as national policy for 200 years, and you dissolve entire nations into the population of an empire. The siege of Samaria lasted roughly 3 years. The biblical text credits a king named Shalmaneser. Assyrian records credit his successor, Sargon II, who claimed the victory in his own royal annals. And in those annals, carved into stone at his palace, there is a number: 27,290. That is how many people he says he carried away. Scholars still argue over whether that counts the whole population or only the elite, but the number is not the point. The point is what comes next. The biblical text tells us exactly where they were taken: Hala, Habor by the river Gozan, the cities of the Medes. Those are real places: northern Mesopotamia, the Habur River Valley in what is now northeastern Syria, and eastward into the Zagros Mountains of western Iran. And then nothing. No exile chronicle, no prophet writing home, no return. Judah, the southern kingdom, went into exile in Babylon 130 years later, and Judah came back. We have the names, we have the census lists. The northern 10 tribes never came back. They do not vanish in a puff of smoke. They vanish the way people actually vanish in history, slowly and administratively. A generation stops using the old names. A generation after that stops speaking the old language at home. A generation after that has a grandmother's story and no way to check it. And that silence has been sitting there for 27 centuries. Quick question before we go further, and I want you to answer this one in the comments. Do you think a population that large can genuinely disappear? Or do you think they were absorbed and we simply lost the ability to see them? Hold that thought, because there is one ancient text that refuses to leave it at silence. One text that says, no, they did not just melt into the empire, they left on purpose, together, and it names the destination. The book is called Second Esdras. If you grew up with an American Protestant Bible, you have almost certainly never seen it. If you grew up Catholic, you may have seen it in an appendix. If you grew up Ethiopian Orthodox, you may know it by a completely different name, and we will come back to that. Scholars usually call the core of it Fourth Ezra. Chapters 3 through 14 are a Jewish apocalyptic work that most researchers date to the end of the 1st century after Christ, roughly a generation after Roman legions burned the Second Temple. And that timing is everything. Picture the world this author is writing in. The temple is ash. Jerusalem is a Roman construction site. The priesthood is finished. And a Jewish writer, grieving and furious, does what apocalyptic writers did. He tells his own crisis through the voice of a hero from the past. The voice he chooses is Ezra. The historical Ezra was a scribe and a priest of the 5th century BC, who came up from the Babylonian exile with a Persian mandate: rebuild the community, restore the law, put the pieces back together. The author picked the one figure in the tradition whose job was recovering what was lost. And in this book, Ezra does not lecture, he argues. He asks what people are not supposed to ask out loud. Why did the wicked prosper? Why did God let this happen? Here is something else you should know, and it is going to matter later. The original Hebrew version is gone, lost. What survives came to us in Latin, in Syriac, in Ethiopic, in Armenian, in Arabic, in Georgian, carried for centuries by communities scattered from the Nile to the Caucasus. Think about what that means. This text was preserved almost everywhere except the place it was written. And then we reach chapter 13. Ezra has a vision. He sees something rise out of a churning sea, the figure of a man. Wherever this figure looks, everything under his gaze trembles. An enormous multitude gathers from the four winds of heaven to make war on him, and he destroys them, not with a sword, but with the words of his own mouth. And then, when the battlefield is empty, Ezra sees a second crowd approaching, a peaceful one. They are not armed. They come to him. And Ezra, being Ezra, asks the obvious question, who are these people? The answer he is given is the reason this video exists. These are the 10 tribes, the ones carried away out of their own land, the text says, in the days of Hosea the king, when the king of Assyria took them captive. And then the text does something no other ancient source does. It tells you they made a decision as a body to leave, to walk away from the empire entirely and go somewhere no one had ever been. And it tells you the name of the place they went. I am going to say that name in about 90 seconds, but if I say it now, without the language underneath it, you will hear a noise instead of a clue, and the clue is the entire point.
If I die tomorrow, my family inherits 2.5.
So here is what the text says they did. They took counsel among themselves. That is the language, a collective decision. They agreed to leave the nations behind and travel into a far country where no human being had ever lived. Why? The text gives a reason, and it is a brutally honest one. They went there, it says, so that they could finally keep the commandments they had never kept while they were home. That is not a triumphant reason. That is a confession. This is a text saying our ancestors failed, and their answer to failure was distance. They entered the Euphrates, it says, at the narrow passages of the river. They crossed, and the journey through that country took them 1.5 years. And the name of that region, the text says, is Arzareth. Arzareth. Say it slowly. Ar-za-reth. In the Latin manuscripts, it appears as a proper noun, sitting in the sentence exactly the way Egypt or Assyria would sit. A place, a destination, something you could theoretically walk to. And for centuries, that is how European readers took it. Map makers hunted for it. Travelers claimed to have found it. But Arzareth is not a Latin word. It is not a Greek word. It is a Hebrew phrase that has been crushed into a single unit and then carried through 3 or 4 languages by scribes who did not speak it. Pull it apart and you get 2 words. Eretz, pronounced eretz. It is one of the most common nouns in the entire Hebrew Bible. It means land, earth, territory, country. It is the word in the very first sentence of Genesis when God creates the heavens and the eretz. Aheret, pronounced ahe, it means other, another, different. Put them together, eretz aheret, another land. That's it. That's the whole secret. The mysterious name of the mysterious country where the 10 tribes are supposed to have gone is not a name at all. It is a description. It means quite literally somewhere else. Now hold on, because this is the part that made me sit up when I first traced it. That phrase is not invented. It's a quotation. It comes out of the book of Deuteronomy in a passage where Israel is warned about what will happen if the covenant is broken. The people will be uprooted from their soil in anger and fury and thrown, the Hebrew verb is violent, thrown into another land, Eretz Acheret. And the passage ends with 3 words that will keep you up at night if you sit with them long enough. As it is this day. So look at what the author of this vision has done. He has reached back into the law of Moses, taken the exact phrase that describes the punishment, another land, and turned it into a place name. He has taken a threat and given it geography. He has taken an ending and made it an address, which means the name is doing double duty. Read one way, it is a location. Read the other way, it is a verdict quoted from Deuteronomy and sealed onto the map. That is an astonishing piece of writing, and it's completely invisible unless you know the Hebrew. So why does almost nobody know this? Partly because of what happens in translation. When a translator hits Arzareth, he has three options, and all three of them lose something. He can leave it as Arzareth, which is faithful and which tells the average reader absolutely nothing. He can translate the meaning, which some ancient Syriac readings effectively do. They render it as another land, which erases the name completely so the reader never suspects there was one. Or he can assume a copying error and correct it, which some Latin manuscript traditions did, producing readings like Ararat, a real place, and almost certainly not what the author wrote. Three roads out, every one of them buries the clue. And that's before we get to the fact that in almost no Bibles printed in the United States today, the sentence doesn't appear at all because the book is not in there. Let me stay with that journey for a minute because the details are where the historians start earning their paychecks. The crossing point is the Euphrates, at what the text calls the narrow passages. That is not a vague statement. In its lower stretches, the Euphrates is broad and slow and thoroughly unhelpful if you are trying to move a population on foot. But go north into the highlands of what is now southeastern Turkey, and the river runs through gorges, and there are fords that armies and caravans used for thousands of years. A group moving out of the Assyrian resettlement zones, away from imperial control, would have had exactly those options, north and west into the Anatolian highlands, or north and east through the mountain corridors toward the Caucasus and the steppe beyond. And what is beyond? In the ancient imagination, and in a fair amount of ancient reality, what is beyond is emptiness, grassland that runs for 1,000 miles, the great corridor that the Scythians rode and the Silk Road would later thread through, territory the empires of Mesopotamia knew about, feared, and never held, a land where, from an Assyrian scribe's point of view, nobody lived. And a year and a half on foot is not a migration to the next province. It is the kind of distance that puts a mountain range and a desert between you and the people who deported you. Let me be careful here, because this is where these stories usually go off the rails. There is no archaeological site labeled Arzareth, no inscription, no ruin, no dig with a signboard. What we have is a text written centuries after the events it describes, in a genre that was never trying to be journalism. But here is what we also have. Assyrian records confirming the deportations were real and enormous and directed exactly where the Bible says they were directed. Archaeological evidence of a northern kingdom that materially stops being a northern kingdom, and communities scattered across the Caucasus, Central Asia, and Northeast Africa whose Jewish presence is so old that the origin story is genuinely contested by serious scholars. So the question is not whether people moved. People definitely moved. The question is whether one ancient author preserved a real memory of where some of them went, or whether he was writing hope in the shape of a map. Which is exactly why the next part is so strange, because if this book raises a legitimate historical question, why is it so hard to find?
One tiny flaw ruins most grounding.
Second Esdras was not always obscure. It was widely read in the early church. Church fathers quoted it. Portions of it are still recited in some Western liturgies to this day. There are prayers in use right now whose wording comes out of this book, said by people who have no idea where the words came from. So how did it end up outside the fence? The honest answer has several parts, and I'm going to give you all of them, including the boring ones. Part one is language. The Hebrew original was lost early. and for the rabbinic tradition, a book without a Hebrew text and without a claim to the age of the prophets simply did not qualify. That is not a conspiracy. That is a filing rule applied consistently. Part 2 is Jerome. When he produced the Latin Vulgate in the late 4th century, he was openly skeptical of books outside the Hebrew canon. Second Esdras was pushed to the margins, and later Latin Bibles printed it in an appendix after the New Testament, outside the main body, not destroyed, demoted. Part 3 is the Reformation. In 1546, the Council of Trent produced a definitive list of canonical books for the Catholic Church, and Second Esdras was not on it. The Protestant reformers working from the Hebrew canon made their own cut and grouped this material as Apocrypha, a word that means hidden or set aside. And here's the detail most people find genuinely shocking. The original King James Bible of 1611 contained the Apocrypha. It was printed, bound, and sold with it. The book we are discussing was in it. What removed it was not a council and not a decree. It was economics. In the early 19th century, the British and Foreign Bible Society, the largest Bible printer and distributor on earth at the time, went through a bitter internal fight over whether to keep funding Bibles that contained the Apocrypha. In 1826, they resolved not to. Cheaper to print, fewer arguments. And within a couple of generations, an entire English-speaking world grew up holding a book it believed had always looked that way. So, was it suppression or was it housekeeping? I think reasonable people land in different places on that. You can call it a series of defensible institutional decisions made over 1,400 years. You can also notice that the cumulative effect was the disappearance of the one ancient text that names a destination for the 10 tribes. Both of those sentences are true at the same time. That is what makes this interesting instead of easy. Tell me in the comments which one you lean toward, and be specific, because I would rather read one good argument than 100 one-word verdicts. And now the detail I promised you earlier, the one that changes the shape of this whole conversation. Second Esdras never left every Bible. In the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo tradition, this material survives under the name Ezra Sutuel, inside one of the broadest scriptural collections in the Christian world. In parts of the Slavonic tradition, it survives as well. So the book that vanished from American bookshelves has been sitting on the shelf in Ethiopia the entire time, in Ge'ez, copied by hand, generation after generation, while Europe was still arguing about whether it counted. The line of transmission for one of the most tantalizing texts about the lost tribes of Israel runs straight through Northeast Africa. And that is not speculation, that is manuscript history. Which brings us to something even harder to explain away. Set Second Esdras aside for a moment. Close it. Pretend you never heard of it. Now open a standard Bible, any translation, any hotel drawer in America, and read what the canonical prophets say about the northern tribes after they are gone. Because they do not say the tribes were destroyed. They say the opposite, repeatedly, in text that no council ever removed. Jeremiah speaks of gathering people from the northern country and from the far corners of the earth, and he specifically includes the blind, the lame, the pregnant woman, the woman in labor. That is not the language of a symbolic remnant. That is the language of a real population that has been living and having children somewhere for a very long time. Amos gives us the most haunting image of all. He describes Israel being sifted among all nations the way grain is sifted in a sieve, shaken violently, scattered thoroughly. And then he adds the line that does the real work. Not the smallest grain shall fall to the ground. Sifted everywhere. Lost by us, not lost by the one doing the sifting. And Ezekiel is handed 2 sticks, one for Judah and one for Joseph, and told to hold them together in his hand until they become one. A prophecy that only makes sense if, at the time it was given, the second group still existed somewhere to be joined back on. Now put the two sources side by side. The canonical prophets, they are scattered, they are kept, they will be gathered from the ends of the earth. The book that was removed, here is the river they crossed, here is how long it took, here is what the region is called. One set of texts tells you that they exist, the other tells you where to point. I am not going to oversell this. There is a perfectly ordinary explanation available. The author knew the prophets intimately. He was writing inside that tradition, and a good writer working inside a tradition will naturally produce something that fits it. That is not a conspiracy. That is literacy. But there is also a version where a first-century Jewish author, sitting in the rubble of the temple, preserved a fragment of memory older than himself. I cannot prove that version. I also cannot make the ordinary explanation account for why he chose that specific phrase from Deuteronomy and welded it into a place name. That is a very deliberate thing to do. Which leaves us with the question this whole video has been walking toward.
Has anyone actually made it to level 4 before?
If Arzareth was a real region, if any part of this describes something that actually happened, then those people had children, and their children had children, and that line did not stop. Populations do not evaporate. That is not a thing that happens in history. Populations assimilate, they intermarry, they lose a language in 2 generations and a name in 3. They keep a food custom without knowing why. They keep a burial practice, a Sabbath rhythm, a story a grandmother tells that nobody can source. They forget where they came from, and they keep doing the thing anyway. And across the world right now, there are communities who never accepted the idea that they were lost at all. There are Jewish communities in Ethiopia whose tradition traces them to the tribe of Dan. There is a widespread tradition among Pashtun tribes in Afghanistan and Pakistan of Israelite descent. There are communities in southern Africa with an oral history of a journey out of the north and practices that look unmistakably familiar to anyone who has read Leviticus. There are groups across West Africa, India, and the Americas making similar claims. I want to be straight with you about the evidence because you are not a child, and I am not going to flatter you. Some of these traditions have received serious academic attention, and the results are genuinely mixed and genuinely debated. Some rest almost entirely on oral history, and oral history is real evidence, but it is evidence historians handle with care. I am not going to tell you which of them is descended from whom. The inside. Not a document, not a monument, just a habit that outlived its own explanation. And that's what makes one Hebrew phrase buried in a deleted book so difficult to put down. Eretz Acharet, another land. Not a mystical realm, not a hidden dimension, just somewhere else. Somebody, almost 2,000 years ago, sat down in a ruined city and wrote that word because he could not accept that a third of his own people had simply ceased to exist. He may have been wrong about the geography. He was not wrong about the instinct.
Okay, any feedback on that? Anybody got anything? Anybody familiar with that?
Shalom, everyone. Sorry for the feedback. Yes, sir, Brother Leonard. I'm familiar with Arzareth, and a lot of different things that I heard him say seemed off, but I did have a question about Arzareth, and if it's okay, if I can read Jubilees. There's 4 verses, I think.
Okay.
27 through 30 in chapter 10. In the 4th week, in the 1st year, in the beginning thereof, in the 34th Jubilee, where they dispersed from the land of Shinar. And Ham and his sons went into the land which he was to occupy, which he acquired as his portion in the land of the south. Verse 29, and Canaan saw the land of Lebanon to the river of Egypt, that it was very good, and he went not into the land of his inheritance, to the west, that is, to the sea, and he dwelt in the land of Lebanon, eastward and westward, from the border of Jordan and from the border of the sea. Verse 30, and Ham, his father, and Cush and Mizraim, his brothers, said unto him, Thou hast settled in a land which is not thine, and which did not fall to us by lot. Do not do so, for if thou dost do so, thou and thy sons will fall in the land and be accursed through sedition. For by sedition ye have settled, and by sedition will thy children fall, and thou shalt be rooted out forever. And that was chapter 10 of Jubilees, 27 through 30. Brother Leonard, my question is, with Azareth, I've heard before people say when Canaan disobeyed and did not dwell in his own land, that's the land where no one inhabited. And because of that, Azareth, that had no people, was the land that Canaan was supposed to have dwelt in. And my question is that true? Shalom.
No, I wouldn't. The reason I say that is because of what you just read. I don't know if you know it or not, but what you just read is Genesis chapter 15. So you say, what are you talking about? The Most High told Abraham he was going to die in a good old age, and his children was going into captivity for 400 years, right?
Yes, sir.
And he said that they're going to come back here. They in the land of Canaan. He said they're going to come back here for the time of for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet fulfilled. What iniquity? What you just read? He stole land. So when they came out of the land of Egypt, Most High fulfilled the promise. He took them back to the land where Canaan had stole from them, and they rooted them out, like he said, just like you just read.
Yes, sir. So in that chapter, Canaan did he not inhabit his land, or he inhabited his land plus more land that wasn't his?
Well, he took the land with what belonged to Shem. Shem went to Mesopotamia.
Okay.
So that's what it was. So yeah, Shem didn't go to Canaan land. Shem went to he displaced when he stole their land. He displaced them, and they went to Mesopotamia, where we picked the story up of Abraham.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Right.
And what was that bothered me? That I can't remember what he said that bothered me. Well, I do know one thing. It was almost like he was saying Ezra just made stuff up, like pulled words out of other prophets' mouths and put it on paper. I wanted to know, was there... I had never heard what he said in the beginning about there not being original Hebrew. So is that for all of the books in the Apocrypha, or those certain parts which we know the Greeks or Romans made up?
Right. The same thing happened to all of them, like what he just said. Ezra didn't write that. It's those Greeks and the Edomites and the Romans that got out to our books did that. They took what Ezra had wrote and they falsified it. That's what they did with all the books.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Right.
And then
Ezra wrote it, and somebody else got hold to Ezra's book and did that. Yeah.
The part where the man speaking mentioned a third of the nation, basically, and that's what I was trying to remember, what I was thinking about. So we know from what you shared and taught us that all the tribes at one point were able to go back together. So it wasn't like they disappeared and nobody ever saw them again. I remember many classes ago, I had asked about these lists of names that were going back. And it caught me off guard that a prophet from the Northern Kingdom was going back with them. And you had taught us that it wasn't like they got displaced and they never knew where each other were. And not
Right.
even if they didn't, that all the Israelites were given the opportunity to go back, not just the Southern Kingdom.
Exactly.
So I did find that to be, you know, I don't know who this man is, but falsified, for lack of better words. He didn't know what he was saying. I do have one more question about Arzareth, and that's given what I just said, that the Israelites went to this other land.
Right.
What is the reason for the years, for lack of better words, of peace they were given, specifically before being taken by ships? I think of like Noah, where the righteous people were able to live out their life, but I'd like to know what your understanding is, why they didn't get there and suddenly at that moment be taken by ships to Egypt.
Well, right. So that's not how the Creator work. That's another way how when you're dealing with people, especially in my case, where I mean, you know, you just they're not gonna get it, and then somebody for somebody to get this information, it ain't gonna happen overnight, because the Most High got so many things you have to do to you over a time period. So like for example, Curtis, he said that we was gonna go to a far land in ships, right? So they left. They Antioch Epiphanes came. They fled into Africa, and then over time, process of time, the Most High's prophecy overtook them. It's the same. It's the same way with blessings. You go and pray for the Most High to assist you on something, to help you do this or take away this or that. It ain't gonna happen overnight. When you pray about it and let it be known to the Lord, then you wait. Then it overtakes you. So that's the thing that people don't understand. It's not like what we picked up their ways, like he said in Deuteronomy 28. We want it now. Rent our own. Get everything now. But look at Joseph in the prison. Yeah, he tarried. He prayed and he tarried. Then it overtook him. The baker went and told the king about him. Then boom! All of a sudden, one day, what he had prayed about, what he had been revealed to him in the dreams, overtook him. When we see it all, Moses was in prison, and everything. That's how it works. It overtakes you. So anyway, in my research about Azra, and I hold to it, I stick to it, is that it's a place. And Azra, when you look on the map and when you look on it, which makes all the sense in the world, it's up by the Mediterranean Sea, right? And it's on the backside of the Sahara Desert. And so not all the 10 tribes went there, but majority of them, like the guy said in the second Ezra, we can't keep the laws where they was at. And the reason they couldn't keep them was because of Jeroboam, and those people wouldn't allow them to go back to Jerusalem to where the seat of David was at. So when the opportunity was given by Cyrus for them to go back, a lot of them took it upon themselves, like the scriptures say, and they went to a place where they could keep this law. And they went up to this place. And then when you understand how it works, they're on the back side of the Sahara, and on the other side of the Sahara is the Southern Kingdom. They done fled, and the Epiphanes and ran them out of the land, and they over on the west coast of Africa. Then eventually they started trickling through the Sahara Desert, and they all ended up right there on west coast of Africa. And then, like I said, the prophecy that he told them in Deuteronomy 28 overtook them. The ships came.
Yes, sir. That makes sense.
Right. And then, and like in the same the book that I got, the same thing. He says that from for like they was in 13 or 14 different captivities. And so when you understand that they would always flee. So they already had a place, they had different places where they had fled to, that all this, a lot of they had little pockets of communities that never came back to the land of Israel. So when Antiochus Epiphanes came in 70 and did what he did in 143 BC, they already knew places that they can go, they can flee to. So they got all these little routes and different little places they go, they went, they fled to. And then so eventually they ended up trickling over down on the west coast of Africa. And that was a place where at that time when you go look at the historical part of it, nobody never lived there. Because the history of Africa is on the Nile River. So they say let's go to a place never have a man live. That was on the west coast. Over there in that pocket. Nobody had never been there. There was very limited people there. And that's where they ended up at. And like I said, eventually from the backside of the Sahara, where the 10 tribes, a large amount of the 10 tribes eventually started all those trade routes that they had with the camels and all that. They eventually start trickling through there, and they all ended back up together on the Gold Coast, like they tell you when the transatlantic slave trade happened. They had these kingdoms all along there, and they came there and got them, just like the Lord of hosts had prophesied. Okay, that's what my research. Okay, so
yes, sir. And I forgot that how well off they were there. It's almost like, as you said, as time passes, he let them get built back up just to take it all away again, almost.
Right. Well, they never really was poor. It's just that eventually, because that's what they knew. That's all they knew. They knew they was trade. They was merchants. They knew how to get money. It's just that what the Most High prophesied didn't overtake them until the time appointed. When they got on the West Coast, that's when the slave ships came. They had already when you look at what happened, the curses, they happened just like that in order. They would discontinue from their heritage and all that. Then eventually the last one, Deuteronomy 28:68, the ships came and took them to a land where, away from their land, and no man bought them. Nobody redeemed them. They couldn't redeem them because they was way across the ocean.
Yes, sir. Right.
So it's like scriptorial. You can just all you gotta do is follow the scripture, right? So many people can't see that because they try to incorporate the New Testament in the story, and that's where they getting discombobulated. But if you look on the map, right up by the Mediterranean, it's a place called Astrid on the map.
I did not know that. I will look.
Okay. Anybody else got anything on that? We're gonna read these 3 chapters.
Shalom, brother, and shalom. One thing, when he talked about Asher being a different book or this land, he spoke about maybe the Jews or the Catholics may not have heard somewhat of it, and then like the American Bible, the King James or whatever, didn't hear anything of it. But then he spoke of the Ethiopian Bible, saying they may have heard, but but it would be quite different. It would be different. Do you know
Right.
what he meant by that?
Yeah,
So,
he said that it was two different words. Another land is what Astra means. And what the Edomites and the Greeks and the Roman Catholic Church made a name out of it, but it actually meant another land. And so he says when you start dealing with the Giaz and the different books that was associated with Africa, they actually said that it was another land, which coincide with the curses that we was
Shalom.
gonna
So
go.
when he denouncing the Ethiopian Bible per se, what they thought of it, while when he said that it would just be something like totally different, or was he saying about another land? Shalom.
Yeah, he says in the Ethiopian Bible, it actually comes out to be another land in the Giaz. When you understand Giaz and break the language down, it actually means another land, and that's how they perceived it. But when the so-called church fathers, which is Greeks and Romans, got hold to our records, they hoodwinked it for a reason, because they was being used by the Lord of hosts to do exactly what he said, to discontinue us from our heritage, lose our identity. So that's what they did.
So when they were changing the Bible, or the scrolls, the words, so they had someone from, I guess, a translator from every walk, like the Latin, the Greek, and to like the Hebrew knowledge. They wouldn't have known that Hebrew language, would they have? Shalom.
Yeah, Esau. You got Esau was raised by Abraham. He Hebrew. That's when you understand
Mm-hmm.
the culprit. Who would stand the game for us not knowing who we are? Esau. So he's the one. He's the head, like it says in the book of Obadiah. And even when we look in uh First Maccabees, it says Alexander came, but he's not he's not a Greek. He's not a Greek. He's an Edomite. So the head, the head of the Greek Empire is Edomites. They using these.
Yes,
They
sir.
got the body following them, but the head, the thinkers, is even all to the day is Edomites. That's like he said. It's a woman riding upon the fourth beast, and she decked in red. That's Esau. He's the one doing all of it. You go back to the transatlantic slave trade. He was all the ship masters, the ship captains of all the ships. All the ships was owned by Esau. Esau controlled this whole thing that happened. Esau controlling
Yes,
it.
sir.
That's
Thank
and that's why he says in the last days when he come back, everybody else gonna rejoice, but Esau gonna be ashamed because he's the culprit. Okay. Anybody else got anything? Okay. So we'll start reading out of so the name of that video is Asherah Revealed, where did the 10 lost tribes actually go? And the channel is History Morsel. So I'm gonna go to Genesis chapter 32. You want to read that, Joyce?
Shalom, brother, and shalom, everyone. And thank you for that title, sir. Um, Genesis 32, verse 1. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, This is God's host. And he called them the name of that place, Menahem. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau, thy servant Jacob said thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. Verse 5, and I have oxen and ass, flocks and manservants and women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. And the messengers was returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and herds and the camels into two bands. And he said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saideth unto me, Return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and all of the truth which thou hast shown unto thy servant, for which my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me. And the mother saideth, I will surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau his brother, 200 she goats and 20 he goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milch camels with their coats, 40 kine and 10 bulls, 20 she asses and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, Pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, When Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, Whose art thou? And whither goest thou? And whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, They be thy servant Jacob's, and it is a present sent unto my lord Esau. And behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the drove, saying, On this manner shall ye speak unto Esau when ye find him. And he say, Moreover, Behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us, for he said, I will appease him with the servant that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face, and pre-virgin he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. And those he rose up that night and took his two wives and his two women servants and his 11 sons, and passed over in the ford Jabbok. And he told them and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. And Jacob was left alone, and there they wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince thou power with God and with men, and has prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, Wherefore is it thou doest ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God's face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh, and the sinew that shrank. Was Genesis 32, verse 1 to 32. Shalom.
Got any comments on that?
That's that familiar passage in this chapter where people say that Jacob wrestled with the Lord. Shalom. That angel that he wrestled with, which angel was that? That was not the Lord of hosts that he wrestled with?
Yeah, it's Michael.
That was Michael? Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
you see what he did? He changed his name.
yes, he changed his names. Yes,
Right.
sir. And so the presents he was trying to give to his brother, he did not, he prayed about that because he knew the brother was wrong, but he still wanted to give those presents. So he did that. Is that in forecoming of of Michael coming to bless him?
Well, what you have to understand about that, Michael is the one informed him to do what he do. Notice what he doing.
Right.
When Isaac blessed Jacob and Jacob got the blessing, Isaac told Jacob, he's Esau Lord, right?
Yes, sir.
So he's using the Lord of hosts and then showed him how to counter that by he keep on saying they keep calling Jacob, he keep calling Esau his Lord. You see that?
Yes, sir. That's why I was saying he was, and you confirmed it about, that was Michael's doing.
Right.
And that's why Jacob wanted to know, what is this all about? Tell me your name. What's happening?
Right. So you have to go back in order to divide it. It's a lot. I mentioned earlier about the blessings overtaking us. This is a prime example. We go back to we read a couple of weeks ago. Let me get it. When Jacob fled, found that. Might have been last week. Okay. Let me get it. Yeah, so it's 10, 28 and 10. And Jacob went out from Bathsheba, and he went toward Haran, and he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took the stones of the place. These stones Abraham used when Abraham made an altar. You have to understand that. And he put them for his pillow. He don't know that. He don't know these same stones. And he lay down in the place to sleep. And he dreamed. And behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and the top reached into heaven. Now here you go, right here. Behold, the angels, these regular angels of God, ascended and descended on it. The angels, regular angels on the ladder, they're going up and down. And behold, the Lord, Michael, stood above it. And he said, see right here, see? He's talking to Abraham, he's talking to Jacob right here. And he said, I am the Lord God of Abraham, thy father, and the God of God of Isaac. The land wherein thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. So there go the prophecy right here. Now it's got to overtake him. So my point is this: you get over here what you just read. Why is he panicking? Jacob got on here. He going his way back to, and Esau was coming, but he didn't already told you. Your seed is gonna be like the sands of the sea. So he already told him that. And like I said, when you understand what the Most High, what the Lord of hosts speaketh, it's gonna come to pass. So we see right here that he, even though Jacob started feeling a certain type of way, he still made it through it. I mean, if you go the same story, if you go to Jasher, the Lord of hosts sent angels, and they put fear in Esau. And by the time Esau got to Jacob, he was humbled. Okay, but anyway,
Yes, sir.
it's a prime example of how he speaks something over you. You have to tarry. You have to have patience. You got to tarry. Okay, so yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
right. Anybody else got anything on that? Okay, so we're gonna read chapter 33. You want to read that, Brittany?
Yes, sir. Shalom. Genesis chapter 33. Jacob and Esau meet, and it says, and he buyeth a field and buildeth an altar. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the 2 handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw the women and the children, and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near, and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my God, in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should override them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? Let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him an house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padarim, and pitched his tent before the city. Verse 19, and he bought a parcel of field where he had spread his tent. at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. And that was chapter 33 of Genesis. Shalom.
Okay, got any feedback on that?
Verse 5, it just made me think about what you were talking about with Sister Cheryl. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children and said, who are those with thee? And he said, the children which God hath graciously given thy servant. There was no need for him to detail which God. It was clear that Esau knew what God he was talking about. So as soon as I saw that, it made me think about what you just said. So Esau is very kind, it seems like, to Jacob in this. And we, excuse my terminology and my words, but we know all hell broke loose after their father died. And so it comes across when you read this, like this chapter in itself, that Esau is not that bad of a person. Is what it looks like.
Right. Well, like I was saying, this is the version. It's like we were just talking about what they got a hold of second Ezra, and it wasn't Ezra that wrote it. They wrote it when they got hold of our record. So right here, we know right here the reason why Esau is so calm now. In Jasher, the Most High sent those angels and put fear on him. He had on his mind to do harm to Esau. But by the time he had like 3 or 4 different waves of angels past him, and they put a fear on Esau. And so by the time Esau gets to Jacob, he acting like he got some sense. It's the same way that he did when he went to Amalek and told him that ain't none of Abraham's sister. That's his wife. Take her back. And then he plagued his house. That's why Amalek acting right. And the same thing happened right here. And they took that out. But one of the things I wanted to shine light on was, and it's right here in our face, but verse 2. Okay, he says he put the handmaid, so he in a pickle right here. He got all his children with him except Benjamin. Yeah, she hadn't had Benjamin yet. So it says, and then you understand why everything happened the way it did later on in the book. It says, and he put the handmaidens, right? So the handmaidens went first. That's the Bela and the other lady. And he put handmaidens and their children first. So if anybody gonna get killed first, it's gonna be them, right? Then Leah and her children, right? Then Leah after that, and then Rachel. That's who Jacob loved. And then Joseph. Joseph, the one had the coat of many colors. So the last person they was gonna meet, if they was gonna kill everybody, Joseph was gonna be the last one standing. That's how he presented them. So okay, then so they passed over. Then the other verse, a lot of people look over this, verse 20. Okay, he says he erected there an altar, just like his daddy did. His grandfather Abraham, he erected an altar. Now look what he called it. He called it El Israel. Why is he calling it El Israel? He just wrestled with the angel. And the angel told him his name is Israel. See that?
Yes, sir.
That's why he called it Israel. He just got the name Israel. He just wrestled with him. And he gave him, and he told him, and another thing before I go, this back over in 32, he says that let me get it, 26. Says 26, 20, this chapter 32 says, and Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. He asked the angel his name, and he said, Where is thou that thou doest ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face. That ain't God. This how you have to rightly divide the scriptures. He calling Michael God. And then look what he say, face to face. So why is he saying that? Them 7 angels, when you see in one of those 7 angels, you see Yahweh. Face to face. All of them, they all come from the same essence. When you see Gabriel, you saw Yahweh. That's what they now understanding. So he says, I saw God face to face, and my life was preserved. That ain't Yahweh ain't there. Michael was there. Okay. Anybody got anything else? I'm gonna read this last chapter.
Brother Leonard, shalom. I do have a question. In verse 16, it says, so Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. My question is, I can't remember if this is right, but this is what my memory serves me, that this was a land that Esau had already started invading. Is that correct?
Well, he ain't invading it. He's
just living there. Okay.
That's his family. He married into that family.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah. So chapter 34. This is Dana's defilement avenged, and Dana, the daughter of Leah, which she bore unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of his country, saw her, he took her and he laid with her and defiled her. So like I said right here, we're going to read it again. When Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and he laid with her and defiled her. Now, ain't that the same narrative with the serpent?
Yes, sir.
You can't get nothing else out of that. It's the same thing this dude did when he saw Dana. That's what the serpent did. That's what she said. He beguiled me. He took me. So how can you come up with some other scenario? The same thing right here, and it's the same thing that Jacob did when he saw Rachel. He took her Eliezer brought her up there. She got off the mule. He took in the tent. They ain't going to tent and play marbles. And the same thing right here. They ain't playing marbles, and they ain't playing marbles in the garden. So there ain't no other. You can't come up with no other conclusion. And so if they go in the tent and they doing what adults do, you're gonna get a kid. That's what Cain is. So you don't come to that conclusion. You fumbling with the scriptures. Okay. So anyway, back to this is Genesis 34, verse 3, and his soul cleave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel, and spake kindly unto the damsel. And Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this damsel to wife." So we got to go back and look at that. This is a little young girl. He then came in there and slept with her and all that, and she ain't never been touched. So imagine what she at. But he's saying that he talked nice to her. What the hell that mean? You didn't went in there, you defiled her. But now you say he talking, that's supposed to be okay because he talking nice to her. But anyway, it says, and Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah. See that? Just listen to that word. Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with her, with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel, in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for her daughter, and I pray you give her him to wife. So let's look at the situation. This is how you get a solid foundation when you get into conversations with people that's going to try to lead you off to some more bullshit. So right here, when he went into the girl, now they connected. Well, serpent slept with Eve. They connected. Like I said, we don't look at all that. And so you say, what are you talking about? Well, when Amalek took Eve. So this dude right here took Dana, but he slept with her. The guy took Eve, he took Sarah, he was gonna sleep with her. So you say, what are you talking about? That legitimized the book of Adam and Eve. What these people was doing before the flood. Them ain't Adam's people. There's more people. And that's what they do. So that's why when you get to Adam, when you get to Isaac and Abraham, when they tell them that's my daughter, that's my sister, oh, they're gonna kill them. Okay? They ain't just saying that just for the hell of it. This is what these people did. That was the custom. Okay? And Haman communed with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for her, for your daughter. And I pray you give her him to wife. He already wiped her. And make me marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possession thereof. So this is another thing too right here. Okay, this ain't how Abraham, Enoch, and all them, they dealing with angels. Okay, and they ain't how they live. But now they came in contact with these people. They ain't how they live. They ain't how they live. Same way with us. You know, all of a sudden you come across come into another place with talking to other people. They ain't doing what you're doing. They don't live like you. They go in one ear and out the other one. You know what I'm saying? So it says, and make ye marriages with us. See that? No, that ain't what they do. Make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto our daughters, and take our daughters. No, that ain't how we live. We got a whole track record. We got men like Noah, Enoch, Canaan. We don't live like that. Get on. You know what I'm saying? So it says, like he said, Abraham excused evil. Okay? It says, and Shechem said unto her father and unto her daughters, let what ye shall say unto me, I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel the wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his fathers deceitfully, and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. See that? That's what you talking about. Ain't hit no shit. Ain't how we roll. Okay, we're not gonna conform to that. Okay, so it says, but in this will we consent unto you, if ye will be as we be, that every male of you be uncircumcised, then will we give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if ye will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughters, and we will be gone. And their words pleased Haman, and Shechem Hamor's son, and the young men deferred not to do this thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came unto the gate of their city and communed with the men in their city, saying, these men are peaceable with us. Therefore, let them dwell in the land, trade therein for the land. Behold, it is large enough for them, and let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be one people. If every male among us be circumcised, as they are circumcised, shall not their cattle and their substance and their beasts of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem, his sons hearken all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city. And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dana's brother, took each man his sword, and came into the city boldly, and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dana out of Shechem's house, and went out. And the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep and their oxen and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones and their wives took they captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, ye have troubled me to make me distinct among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites. See that? These are Canaanites. This is the land they stole. The Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed. And I and my house. And they said, should he deal with our sister as with, okay, let me go back. And they said, should he deal with our sister as with a harlot? So that was Genesis 34. Okay, with that being said, anybody got any comments, any questions on anything I just read? Any feedback? Okay, so with that being said, we're gonna go to somebody want to pick a scripture, and then we'll read that scripture and break it down. Then we'll close out. Somebody got a scripture?
Shalom, brother. I don't really have a scripture. Just reading in the book of Asher, chapter 44, talking about Zelicah, the Haphiz's wife, how she tried to seduce Joseph so many a times, and even had her friends or handmaids come in all dressed up and told them to bring a knife, and this they called it a spell of Joseph's beauty that made them cut themselves and stuff.
Right.
Um, and then even lying on Joseph, saying when everybody had went out and Joseph was working and she stayed back and tried to seduce him some more. And she, tore his clothes and said that he tried to get her or whatever. Long story short, every time she tried to get him seduced, he would go against it, saying that his God is not going to let that happen to him. And then she
Exactly.
fell ill after some time. So again, what you talked about earlier about how it wasn't his time and it was the Lord of hosts' time and to fulfill what he had that he knew was going to happen, and he'll fix it. So that was like when I thought about that, we were reading in Genesis 32 through 34. I thought about that. I had read in 44 of Jasher how Silica, was trying to seduce Joseph, and he stayed fast to, the Lord of hosts and what he has done for him and was doing for him, and didn't go be persuaded her way. And the Lord took care of her um with that illness, and then her own son told on her to the father because they were beating Joseph about it, and made and stopped that whole action. Shalom.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, like I was saying, we have to, especially now, we coming together on this line for the Israel Wake Up. We coming together on Prophets of Awakening. We the Most High is endowing upon us and waking us up to the fact that understanding what's coming. So everybody ain't doing that. So when you get into conversation with people, they're not where you at. They're not dealing with the things you're dealing with, and the knowledge and the Most High. They ain't where you at. So that's how you have to deal with them. You know what I'm saying? So that's how that goes.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So with that being said, nobody else have anything else? We're gonna close out right here. And then, like I said, anybody that's listening or come across this video, you can call 337-802-0889, and we can send you the link, and get a better way to communicate, or you can talk to me. We can get it. You got any questions? We can get it situated, and then we can send you the link, and that way you can get involved or get more involved. So with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom, shalom, and another shalom. I see everybody. We have our men's advanced Bible study tomorrow night. The women can come in through YouTube, and then we have our 2 Shabbat classes on Saturday, 1 in the morning from 10 to 12 p.m. Central Time. Then we close the Sabbath out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Okay, shalom, shalom, and another shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
I highly recommend that you get this book and you read it, because it's a must that you understand who the God head is in the order that's in the Old Testament and Tanak, because it's not the same as in the New Testament. And when you read this and you get an understanding, then the scriptures open up, and then you begin to understand. So I highly recommend that you get this book. It's the Elohim of Israel. And there's a breakdown on the word Elohim and who the God of Israel is, and the Godhead.